welcome to our detailed overview of the RF type approval requirements in Argentina. If you have any resulting questions or require more detail on anything, then please do get in touch. My email address is shown on the screen. So the communications regulator in Argentina is ENACOM, formerly known as CNC. ENACOM are responsible for the registration or type approval of RF products, as well as maintaining a national register of authorised applicants, importers and manufacturers. All RF devices are subject to mandatory type approval in Argentina. There are 3 routes to approval: homologation, codification and authorisation, and the approach taken to approval will depend on the technology of the device and its intended end user. Homologation is the route for products for which a specific technical standard applies in Argentina, e.g. low-power devices. Codification is essentially equal to homologation, but is the term for products tested in accordance with test protocols rather than national technical standards, e.g. for wireless LAN devices. The third approach is authorization, which is much less common, and this is applicable when the usage of the device will be limited to the holder of the approval. Argentine approvals can only be issued to a local company included on the Ramatel Telecommunications and Activities and Materials Register as either a national manufacturer, an importer, or as a local representative of a foreign manufacturer. The applicant's Ramatel registration must be in place ahead of the type approval submission being made. The holder of the approval is legally responsible for the product on the market, and strictly speaking, each importer should hold their own type approval. A cost-effective bypass of this requirement, though, is to use a local representative office as the applicant and to have importers listed as authorised importers for the representative company. Most products are subject to mandatory local testing in Argentina. The table showing now lists the the current test standards and protocols applicable to RF devices. At present, there are 6 accredited laboratories in Argentina with varying scopes of accreditation. The number of samples required varies depending on the technology. Most typically, 1 sample for regulatory testing is sufficient, but in some cases where the equipment is complex and the device operates on multiple frequency bands, 2 samples will be required. Samples of Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, Zigbee equipment or other equipment operating on the ISM bands should be prepared ready for conducted conformance testing. For wireless power charging equipment, RFID, NFC devices and so on, 1 sample supplied as sold is required for radiated conformance testing. The logistics of getting test samples into the country can be a bit of a challenge, so usage of a customs broker is advisable to help avoid delays. In our experience, the Argentine test process is usually quite smooth, provided that samples are prepared well and provided with suitable test instructions. The local test requirement can be avoided for cases where there are either no local laboratories accredited for testing or where there are no unique Argentine test standards or protocols in place. Most notably, this is the case for cell phones and receive-only devices, which can both be approved in Argentina on the basis of FCC test reports rather than local testing. Upon completion of testing, the product test reports and the documentation showing on the screen now must be submitted to ENACOM. Documents are to be in Spanish language. The approval number will typically be assigned and made available to the applicant following submission, enabling preparation of the product label in advance of receipt of the approval certificate. It is important to note, though, that the availability of the approval number does not permit import and sale of the equipment to commence in Argentina. Import and sale may only begin once ENACOM issue the final approval certificate. The full lead time to approval in Argentina is typically around 8 to 12 weeks, and the ENACOM type approval certificates are valid for a period of 3 years. Applications for approval renewal must be submitted to ENACOM ahead of their expiration date, though will not be accepted earlier than 30 days from expiry. Renewals are usually processed on a paperwork-only basis unless the technical standards or test protocols applicable to the device have changed during its validity. The original applicant for type approval must continue to hold the approval. Renewal applications submitted after expiration will not be accepted, and in which case a new approval must be sought, including retesting. So on to a few specifics now, firstly concerning product modifications. Any changes to RF characteristics requiring retesting and updating of the approval. In such cases, ENACOM file the new report alongside the original application and the approval number remains the same. More minor changes which don't impact RF functionality will be decided by ENACOM on a case-by-case basis. Modular approvals are permitted in Argentina and can be used to cover the host equipment from an RF perspective without a unique approval for the host being sought. ENACOM will also accept a combination of test reports, so if your device, for example, contains a module that has already been tested and approved, as well as another radio that has not yet been tested or approved, the existing modular test reports and certificate can be included in the new application to ENACOM, thus avoiding the need for repeating at least part of the testing. Modules shipped for testing should be supplied on a test board or jig to facilitate conformance testing. Where you are leveraging modular approval, the label for the host equipment should include a statement saying that the equipment contains module XXX and also list the approval number of the approved module. Multiple branding is not an option for Argentina per se, as approvals are issued for each unique brand. It is, however, possible to utilise the same test data. In such cases, applications must contain a factory declaration stating that the different branded equipment has the same hardware and maintains the same specifications, etc. In the event that two brands will be sold by different representative companies, it may prove necessary to obtain separate test reports for each brand. However, the test lab should be willing to issue two sets of test reports without retesting. Finally, family approvals. Separate applications must be filed to ENACOM for each model number, and a separate approval certificate will be issued for each. So family level approvals are not possible. There are, however, cost savings and efficiencies that can be leveraged. Where a manufacturer has a product family using combinations of the same RF module, the most fully populated model can be tested, with the test reports then being leveraged for the depopulated variants. Alternatively, a modular level approval approach could be taken. Lastly, let's take a quick look at the labelling requirements, which changed earlier this year. On the 12th of August 2020, ENACOM released resolution number 854-2020, replacing CNC 82-2015. An example of the new label artwork is shown on the screen now. As you can see, the Ramatel name and logo replaces the CNC name and logo previously prescribed. The labelling should ideally feature on the equipment and be visible without the need to remove any panels. E-labelling is, however, permitted in conjunction with labelling on the product packaging and user manual. If you have any questions or require any additional information on the type approval requirements in Argentina, or if you would like a quotation for approval of any products there, then please don't hesitate to get in touch.